Hi, this is Derek Murphy. I'm going to respond to something I saw on Facebook recently, and I get a lot of comments about this specifically. When I tried to write fiction, it took me a long time. It was difficult for me to finish my first full-length novel. What really helped me was plotting my book. So I'm a plotter as opposed to a pantser, who is someone who writes by the seat of their pants. And I've gotten into discussions and arguments with people because, of course, this is like the all-time raging debate between writers of what's the right way to write a book or the best way to write a book. So this video is about the only way to write a book, because someone in one of my Facebook groups posted a helpful article, which was basically like, this is how you need to write a book, and it was a list of core elements. So if you want to write a book, you should have characters that do certain things and have a plot that kind of goes like this. It was meant to be a helpful post, but she got a lot of really negative criticism by a bunch of authors who said, you know, I hate plotting, I refuse to write a book like what everybody else is doing, and like there's no one way to write a book. And so that's true and kind of valuable advice in the sense that, yes, you can write any kind of book you want to write, and you can do it any way you want to do it. There's no one way to write a book. However, I like to write good books that satisfy readers. And I misspoke, because when you say good books, it assumes a universal aesthetic integrity, or like a scale of 1 to 10 good, like as if quality is universal. I don't think that's true. I think I like to define good in the sense that lots of readers like my book. Certain readers like my book. So my books are good in the sense that readers of the genre that I'm writing for like my books and appreciate my books. That's why I write the kind of books that I write. I do that on purpose because I can earn a living as a writer much easier. I can sell more books with much less effort or marketing spend if I'm writing books that satisfy readers of a certain genre. And the way that makes it easier for me to finish books that satisfy readers is to plot the book. So I'm a big fan of plotting and mapping out. I have a PhD in literature. I like story architecture. I like basing my books off classical mythology and retelling them in modern settings. And I like really strong story arcs. So I have, basically in all my books, I have some version of a hero story. I use the plot dot, which is the 3 books that help me most with plotting is Plot Perfect, The Story Grid, and Story Fix. What I found really interesting about Story Grid is that it's Stephen Coyne's book about working with author Stephen Pressfield. Stephen Pressfield talks about, you know, just do it for the art, listen to your muse, get the book done, don't worry about the market. That's really useful for authors who are having trouble finishing the book because they learn how to overcome resistance. However, the problem is you can write a book that nobody really wants to read, that doesn't satisfy readers, that isn't entertaining. You can still be proud that you finished a book. You may love the book, it might be exactly what you wanted to write, but if you want to make a living as a writer, it's not all about you. It has to be about whether or not other people enjoy your books enough to pay for them. Otherwise, you're just asking for handouts and asking people to support you by buying your books, even if they don't like your books. So I like to write books with the focus of writing books that my readers appreciate and enjoy. It's easier for me to do that if I map out the books. Not everybody is the same way. I have pantser friends who write really good books that don't plot, they don't start off with the story architecture, and that's also fine. If you're capable of that, that's totally fine. But if you're a pantser and you've been writing books that nobody reads or aren't selling or aren't reviewing well, or you're just not able to finish books because you get lost in the middle and you get bored and you move on to another project, those are signs that you should be willing to look into plotting. I don't think anyone is naturally, well, I think people probably are more naturally comfortable with plotting or pantsing, but I think good writers get better at bridging the gap. And if you're not good at something, if you're not comfortable with something, you need to learn to do it well enough to give yourself a balance, because that way you'll be better than the people who are just pantsing or just plotting. You'll have a little bit of both by learning to bridge the gap and getting better. Like you should do what you're best at, and you should allow yourself to do what you're best at really well, but you should also learn to get better at the stuff you're not good at, because if you avoid the stuff you're not good at or you don't feel comfortable with, you'll never really grow and improve. and you need to improve and get better at your craft if you want to write high quality books that sell. So I don't think there's one way to write a book. There's not an only way to write a book. But I do think, especially if you've done, I'm going to make another video about NaNoWriMo next. If you've done NaNoWriMo a lot, maybe you've done NaNoWriMo for 10 years and you've never finished any book, you've never published any book because you've never been able to get through a project or revise. This is the other thing where I think plotting is much better than pantsing, is because a lot of authors, they pants a book and they finish something, but then they can't revise and edit it because they have so many good scenes but no structure, and it's too difficult to go back and try to fix it because there's so many pieces and it's just all messy, and they can't pay someone to fix it for them, and they don't have the time and energy to do it themselves because it's so hard to take a really messy, unplotted book with lots of good scenes and cut it all apart and restructure it in a way that's going to make it really successful. So if you're starting with no structure, I think you might end up with a lot of books that are too difficult to edit, and that's maybe why you don't finish any books. And when I talk about structure, like I have, the plot dot is my 12-point system based on the hero's journey that works really well for me, that I use myself. If you Google it, you can find the image that shows the 12 points, and I have a short book, The Plot Dot, which is a free PDF you can download, which talks about the 12 main points I think most commercial fiction should have. But even if you don't use all 12 of those points, even if you just use, 4, I think I wrote a post that NaNoWriMo just published on its blog about plotting, but I only focused on like 4 main core plot events. Even if you just try to hit those, that's still more structure than some pantsers like to use. So read those posts, read the plot dot, maybe that will help for you. I don't think it's the only way to write a book. I think it's an easier way to write a book that you can finish and publish without spending far too much time and money trying to edit it into something that will be successful. I'm a big fan of writing books that sell, which means writing books that readers like and enjoy and are willing to pay for. So there's definitely an easier way to write more successful books. There's not a right way or an only way to write a book. But I do like to try to help authors to finish their books and to market their books. And the easiest way for me to do that is to give them some structure and say, you need to be writing a certain type of book that's more likely to sell, and you need to write faster books so that you can publish more books more quickly, because that's going to make a big impact on how much money you're able to earn with your books. Anyway, so that's kind of my process. I'm going to talk a little bit about what I'm doing for NaNoWriMo and how to do NaNoWriMo in another video that I'll post soon. So you can look for that one also. Thanks. Bye-bye.